Here's a question most people avoid. If you needed help bathing or dressing or just getting around, who would pay for that care? Most people think that Medicare pays for long-term care. It doesn't. Medicare just pays for short-term rehab, typically after a hospital stay. So if you needed ongoing help at home or at a facility, you're on your own. And the cost can be sky high. Right now, a private room at a nursing home is going to cost you upwards of $100,000 per year. Who can afford that? That's why planning matters. There's three ways that you can buy a long-term care policy these days. Number one is you can get an indexed universal life policy, attach a rider to it, so you have to medically qualify for the life insurance. Number two is a fixed indexed annuity, and you also attach a rider to it. That one you typically don't have to qualify for medically. And then number three, a standalone long-term care policy, which you do have to qualify for. It's a phone call and they ask you a few questions and determine if you're going to be a good risk for them or not. It's either a pass or fail in that particular situation. The fourth way to pay for long-term care, of course, is the worst way, and that's out of your own pocket. Each one has pros and cons, and it's all going to be dependent on your age, your health, and your financial goals. Let me show you a couple of examples of some people that we worked with recently and just what it looks like. Here's a scenario with a husband and wife, 67 husband, wife is 63, looking for a standalone long-term care product. So they're not looking for a death benefit with a life insurance policy. They're not looking for income from an annuity. They just want the long-term care. So in this case, they look at a couple of different companies. In this scenario, we've got the nationwide product. The premium they chose is $1,000 per month, and they're going to pay that over 5 years. Now, they had the choice. They could pay this in a lump sum, they could pay it over 10 years, or they could pay it over 5 years. And by the way, the $1,000 per month is not a required premium. It's the premium they were comfortable paying, then choosing to find out what that benefit would be. So $1,000 per month, 5 years, it'll pay as much as 8 years in duration. The key columns, premiums, as we said, $12,000 a month or $12,000 per year times 5 years, then zero after that. It's all paid up. The monthly benefit is the other big key. How much will this actually pay if somebody triggers a long-term care event? If somebody can't perform 2 of 6 ADLs or activities of daily living, that triggers the event. So for example, husband's 80, wife is 76 over here in year 14. $2,284 is the monthly benefit that they will get, and that will pay for as many as 8 years. The column right to the right of that, the total benefit with inflation, so there's an inflation rider built into this, 3%. So if you just did the simple math here at age 80, 2,284 times 12 times 8 years, it would be under this $243,000 because the $243,000 takes into account the inflation. So that is the maximum benefit that they will pay out with this policy. So they're covered in the event that one or both trigger the long-term care event. So that's a standalone long-term care policy. Another way to buy a long-term care product is to buy a fixed indexed annuity and add a chronic illness rider or long-term care rider, whatever the company calls it. They intertwine. So in this case, we have Susan and David, 63-year-old wife, 67-year-old husband. They have $100,000 to invest. They want a little more flexibility, so they're not looking for a standalone product. They're looking for some income to supplement their retirement, but they also want to be able to cover themselves in the event of a long-term trigger, the 2 of 6 ADLs. So in a scenario like this, when you're buying an annuity, we always look at the younger age to calculate the numbers. Now, I said they had $100,000 to invest. If you look at the green column up here, there's $125,000 in here. Many carriers, what they do is they offer this bonus, in this case a 25% bonus. Now this is not money that they can just turn around and walk away with. They can't just pull this out. It's a calculation. It's a number that the carrier uses to calculate ultimately what this income is going to be, these withdrawals. So it starts at $125,000 with that bonus kicker, grows, and we chose, just for example, to pull the money out starting in year 5. So under that scenario, they're able to pull out $9,642 per year. Now that's contractually guaranteed for life. So that never goes away. As long as one of the spouses are alive, that person will get that $9,642. And most people, of course, take it monthly, so you just divide that number by 12. The other key column here is the one on the right. If the chronic illness income is activated, if somebody triggers 2 of 6 ADLs, if they can't perform those 2 of 6 activities of daily living, this triggers a doubling effect on the actual withdrawal. So the $9,642 doubles to $19,284 per year. They pay that for 5 years. After the 5th year, the number reverts back to the $9,642. But again, it's a joint policy, so as long as one of the spouses is still living, that number will go for as long as they live. You cannot outlive it. You cannot outlast it. That's the beauty. Now, since you've got this bucket of $100,000 and you've got choices, another option, of course, is, well, we're going to just put the money into the market and we're going to use that money to pay any kind of triggering event. That's fine. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So we put the $100,000 into the market, into an ETF of the S&P 500 called the SPY. Now we go back and just use historical rates of return because that's all we can do. And we chose to start in the year 2003. We didn't want to start right at the tech bubble of the year 2000 because you had 3 really negative years and it can really skew the numbers. But frankly, you don't know what the market's going to do. So you don't know when you retire what kind of market you're going to retire into. But we chose to give them a little bit of a break just for illustration purposes. So we put the $100,000 in and we use the sequence of returns starting in 2003. And again, we don't start triggering the money until the 5th year, beginning of the 5th year. Now to compare apples to apples, let's take out the same $9,642 that we would over here, because if I can get that income off of an annuity, let's see what it looks like taking it out of the market. So we take the $9,642 per year and we start going. Now, 2008 was the financial crisis, so the market took a big hit. The account value is starting to go down. We still have some up years, but now let's assume that we're going to actually trigger the LTC event. Somebody can't perform the 2 of 6 ADLs. So in year 17, that triggers. So over here under the annuity, that number doubles to $19,284. Well, let's take the same $19,284 out of the market. What does that look like? After the 3rd year, you get into the 4th year of that money, and all of a sudden you've run out of money completely in the market. So you have nothing left to actually use from that bucket to take care of your long-term care needs. Meanwhile, over here, you still had another year from the doubling effect, and then the money drops back to $9,642 as long as somebody is still living. So a huge advantage from the annuity standpoint over the market portfolio. It's something that you always have to keep in mind. Look at both sides of the equation, and all we're saying over here is just this gives you peace of mind. Nobody's suggesting that you shouldn't put money in the market, and frankly, if you've got a bucket and you can put some of it into an income annuity with that chronic illness rider, now you've got peace of mind and you can take more strategic risk over on this side of the equation. The bottom line is that you've worked hard for what you've built. So let's just make sure that you're protected no matter what the future holds. Click the link below, DM me, email me. Let's get together for a free long-term care planning session, no obligation. Let's just find out what your options are.